What is climate change? Climate change refers to a long-term shift in temperature and weather patterns. Such shift can be natural due to change into the sun's activity or large volcanic eruptions. But since the human activity has been the main drive of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuel like coal and oil and gas. Burning fossil fuel generates greenhouse gases emissions that act like the blanket wrap around the earth, trapping the sun's heat and raising temperature. The main greenhouse gases that are causing climate change include carbon dioxide and methane. These came from using gasoline for driving, a car for a coal for heating a building, for example. Clearing the land and cutting down forests can also release carbon dioxide. Agriculture, oil, and gas operates are major source of methane emissions. Energy, industry, transport, building, agriculture, and land use are among the main sector cause greenhouse gases. Many people think climate change mainly means warmer temperature. But temperature rise is only the beginning of the story. Because the Earth is a system where everything is connected, change in one area can influence change in all others. The consequence of climate change now includes, among others, intense drought, water scarcity, severe fires, rising sea levels, flooding, melting polar ice, catastrophic storm, and declining biodiversity. Climate change can affect our health. Also to grow foods, housing, safety and work, some of us are already more vulnerable to climate impact, such as possible living in a small land, nation in other developing countries, conditions like sea levels rise, and salted water intrusions have advised to the point where whole communities had to have relocate. And protracted drought are putting people at risk of famine. In the future, the number of the climate refuge is expected to rise. Adapting to climate consequence. Protect people, homes, business, livelihood, infrastructure, and natural ecosystem. It cover currently impact and those like are the future in the future. Adaptation will be required everywhere, but must be prioritized now the most vulnerable people with the fewest resources to the cope with climate hazard. The rate to return can be high. Early warning system for disaster, for instance, save lives and property, and can deliver benefits up to 10 times the initial cost. Causes of climate change. Generating power. Generating electricity and heat by burning fossil fuel causes a large chunk of global emissions. Most electricity is still generated by burning coal, oil, or gas, which produce carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, powerful greenhouse gases that blanket the earth and trap the sun's heat. Globally, a bit more than a quarter of electricity comes from the wind, solar, and other renewable sources, which, as opposed to fossil fuel, emit little to no greenhouse gases or pollutants into the air. Manufacturing goods. Manufacturing and industry produce emissions, mostly from burning fossil fuel to produce energy from making things like cement, iron, steel, electronics, plastic, clothes, and other goods. Mining and other industrial process also release gases, as does the construction industry. Machines used in the manufacturing process often run on coal, oil, or gas. And some materials, like plastic, are made from chemical sourced from fossil fuel. The manufacturing industry is the one of the largest contributor to greenhouse gases emissions worldwide. Cutting down forests. Cutting down forests to create farms or pasture or for other reason cause emissions. Since trees, when they are cut, release the carbon that they have been storing. Each year, approximately 12 million hectares of forests are destroyed. Since forests absorb carbon dioxide, destroying them also limit nature's ability to keep emissions out of the atmosphere. Deforestation, together with agriculture and other land use change, is responsible for roughly a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Using transportation, most car, truck, ship, and planes run on fossil fuel that make transportation a major contributor of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide emission. Road vehicles account for the large part due to the combustions of petroleum-based products like gasoline. In internal combustions engines, but emissions from ships and planes continue to grow. Transport accounts for nearly one quarter of global energy-related carbon dioxide emissions, and trends point to a significant increase in energy use for transport over the coming years. Food. Producing food causes emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases in various ways, including through deforestation and clearing of land and agriculture and grazing, digestion by cow and sheep, the production and use of fertilizer and manure for growing crops, and the use of energy-run farm equipments or fishing boats, usually with fossil fuel. All this make food productions a major contributor to climate change. And greenhouse gases emissions also came from packaging and distributing food. Powering building. Globally, residential and commercial buildings consume over half of all electricity. All they continue to draw a coal, oil, and natural gas for heating and cooling. They emit significant quantities of greenhouses gas emissions. Growing energy demand for heating and cooling, with rising air conditioning ownership, as well as increased electricity consumptions for lighting, appliances, and connected devices, has contributed to the rising in energy-related carbon dioxide emissions from building in recent years. Consuming too much. Your home and use of power have you move around. What you eat and how you throw away all contribute to all greenhouse gases emissions. So does the consumptions of goods such as clothing, electronic, and plastic. A large chunk of global greenhouse gas emissions are linked to private household. Our lifestyle have a profound impact on our planet. The wealthiest bear the greatest responsibilities. The richest 1% of the global population combined account for more greenhouse emissions than the poorest 50%. Solar activity. Solar activity, as mentioned above, does play a role in the Earth's climate, while the sun does go through natural cycle, increasing and decreasing the amount of energy that emits to the Earth. It is unlikely that solar activity is a major contributor to global warming or climate change, since scientists began to measure the sun's energy hitting our atmosphere. There has not been a measurable upward trend. Agriculture. There are many significant ways in which agriculture impacts climate change, from deforestation in places like the Amazon to the transportation and livestock that it takes to support the agriculture efforts. Around the world, agriculture is responsible for the significant portion of the world greenhouse gas emissions. However, agriculture is also an area that is making tremendous strides to become more sustainable. As productivity increases, less carbon is being emitted to produce more foods. Agriculture has the potential to act as carbon sink and could eventually absorb nearly the same amount of its emit. Deforestations. Deforestation and climate change often go hand in hand. Not only does climate change increase deforestation by the way of wildfires, fires, and other extreme weather, but deforestation is also a major contributor to global warming. According to the Earth Day Network, deforestation is the second landed contributor to the global greenhouse gases. Many people and organizations fighting against climate change point to reduce deforestation as one of it, if not the most important issue that must be addressed to slow or prevent climate change. Human activity. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the most significant contributor to climate change in the United States is the burning of fossil fuel for electricity, heat, and transportation. Of this factor, transportation is the form of cars, trucks, ships, trains, and planes emit the largest percentage of CO2, spending up global warming and remaining a significant cause of climate change.